Okay. Hi. Thank you, everybody, for coming in and joining this webinar. My name is Ravi Mistry. I'm a photographer. I do commercial photography, and my passion lies into landscape photography. So we're going to talk about landscape photography today that you can incorporate with your travel photography as well. Okay. So we're going to go through a series of photos, series of technical information as well, and some of the questions you guys have, will be answering those as well. So as you have seen into the introduction, I am a Nikon expertise. I work with Nikon, and I have my photography institute right here in Ahmedabad, Gujarat. And by academic education, I'm in computer science and electrical engineer, and jumped into this professional photography about 10 years ago. So let's start with the session. And if you have any questions anywhere, feel free to write down in the question department. All right. So landscape photography is mainly about capturing the nature. And now, as we have really good equipments with us, we are using those equipment to interpret our vision, what we feel comfortable, what we want, and how we see things. We can transform that scene and capture it accordingly. So these are some of the photographs you can see right here. They might be a little bit laggy due to the internet connection, but hopefully they will give you some idea of what I've been working so far. So I work on a very specific project system since a few years. So over time of 4 years, I have shot United States, complete Midwest and Northwest. And recently I started a project right here in my hometown. So we'll be sharing that as well. Now, so what is landscape photography? And as per the definition, as per Wikipedia says, it shows the spaces in the world, sometimes vast and unending, but other times microscopic. Landscape photographs typically capture the presence of nature. So this is like very standard definition. They want to be correct in all the genre possible. But for me, it is all about my pre-visualization of the scene and what I come up with the final output. This is a constant battle or race or whatever you call it. I wouldn't say I have perfected it so far. It is a constant education with it. So we're gonna look into how I work all the landscape, how I start. So first part is the pre-visualization. How do you do that? You have certain vision, so you can always go online or check somebody's landscape photography work, or you have some idea. So first you want to figure out, like, if you want to shoot mountains, if you want to shoot water bodies, if you want to shoot specific forest line or just trees or something like that. So try everything. And as per the history goes, we have always documented nature. Whenever the painting started, we started documenting nature, and that's how we understand beauty. Whenever you start with the paint class or drawing class, that is something first thing you will draw or paint. So first, that was camera obscura. This was pretty much the first camera, if you think technically. So it is an inverted image in a closed room and a small pinhole which will generate image upside down, and then they will trace the whole image. And that's how medieval era or 17th century painters started painting everything so precisely. This is one of the really good example of that. This is view of dirt by Johannes Vermeer. He's one of my favorite painters. By the way, sidetrack. If you want to understand colors, if you want to understand light and composition very nicely, forget photography. Learn painters. Learn from Caravaggio or Johannes Vermeer, or maybe Rembrandt. We always talk about Rembrandt light in photography, but Rembrandt's original work will give you very nice insight on the contrast level to work in portraits. and how the skin tone behaves with the actual scene itself. So yeah, study painters. So that was a sidetrack. Now, so process of landscape photography. So what are the things we want to keep in mind? We want to focus on some essential elements when it comes to landscape photography. Pre-visualization. So you need to have some vision, something. If you don't have a passion for it, if you don't have a push or any kind of thing in your mind, you will not be able to uh, interpret it. You will not able to shoot anything. You cannot just show up on some location and just make a fantastic landscape. You will have to put in some homework. Okay, so first you want to know like what you want to shoot. Either you want to go to Iceland and shoot that beauty, which is pretty famous. I personally like American Midwest, and I absolutely love mountains. So eventually, as future follows, I'll be following lots of mountains. I'm planning to start with the Himachal series as well. So that is something my longing. Like I love mountains, but you have to figure out what you like. You maybe like coastlines. You like water body, rocks, and lighthouses maybe. So it's up to you. Now, once you have the location, you want to pre-visualize like, okay, what your photograph is gonna be like. Is it gonna be very moody? Is it gonna be accurate? It's gonna be very bright and airy. So that visualization has to work. Do you want a good saturation, or you want to shoot only black and white? Okay. So once you have figured that out, and to figure it out, you have to practice. You have to shoot a lot of photographs. Next thing is light pursuit. So light pursuit is funny because it is your preparation meets with the opportunity. Pretty much the whole landscape photography lies into it. You prepare yourself, you practice everything, you perfect everything, and eventually opportunity will show up. You will be at a location and the lights will be beautiful and the weather will be amazing. So you have to understand light. What light is good? When to shoot? Of course, you're gonna show up at a location at 12 o'clock or 1 o'clock in the noon. It's not gonna give you the best light. Well, it depends. If you're shooting analog canyons, again, that's a different scenario. So you want to do a really good homework on your locations. So understanding light is when to shoot. Next is the composition. You want to understand what is composition. So composition is nothing. It's really simple. If you can see my video window right over there on the corner, I am right now on a symmetric composition. I am basically right in the center. I can divide my frame into two. So whatever arrangement you do in the frame of your photograph is composition. So these are very basic compositions, rule of thirds, then you have symmetry, then you have leading lines, and you have patterns. So these are basic ones you can follow through, and you can always make it more complex. There are lots of other compositions you can try as well, but these are the basics you want to start with. So in rule of thirds, you want to keep your subjects on a 1/3 of the side, and 2/3 of the side will be your negative space. All right, so next thing is symmetry. Symmetry is right now, I'm in the center just like that. There is a tree right dead in the center, and you can fold it in half. Then we have leading lines. So as you can see in this particular photograph, the rocks and the water flow in the leading line example, it will actually direct you somewhere. So any photograph, any elements in the photograph which will guide your viewer's eye to a specific location, that's a good example of leading lines. And then you have patterns. So in this particular example, there are lots of pattern happening with rocks, and then it breaks with the water body, and then you have mountains. So this is a good example of rule of thirds. The same photograph I showed you earlier. Now, change angles. So if you show up at the scene, so we call it working the scene. Working the scene is when you show up on a location and you set up your camera. You're not going to get the best photograph straight away. you want to spend some time and you want to figure out what focal length works the best, and what settings works the best, where the light is coming from, and what angle. So you want to go down, you want to stay on the midway, or you want to go, pull up your tripod all the way up and, you know, have a very aerial view, or you can use your drone as well. So this is one, and there's another. So these are actually the same location. I just moved a little bit, and the whole angle is changed. So you can see the difference here. You have nice distribution between sky and the mountain range and the water body and that broken log, and then you have all those pebbles. Here we are using pebbles as a heavy foreground. So I put the camera all the way down into the pebbles, and then I use all the distribution started happening on the top 1/3. So viewers are kind of directed, and it is breaking, the pebbles are, once they break the pattern, you will have a nice scene happening. Okay, one more time. There you go. So then again, you want to focus on the light as well. It's not necessary all the time you want to pull all the shadows and you want to, bring down all the highlights. And sometimes it is just good to show the sky transitioning from the colors and use the silhouette. Now, exposures you want to figure out. The beauty of shooting landscape photography is you have a tremendous control when it comes to shutter speeds. So slower shutter speed will give you really, really long exposures. But this particular example is not a slower shutter speed. This is broad daylight, somewhere early in the morning, and you can see the clouds are stationary, everything is stationary, water flowing on the right side is very stationary as well. So same scene, longer shutter speed. And now you have all the drama happening with the clouds. So what is longer shutter speed? If you keep your shutter open for a longer time and everything in motion will be blurry, and things which are not in motion in your frame will be stationary and will be very clear. Here, instead of water body, you have clouds and stars. So this is about, I think, 400 or 300 seconds exposure. This is, I think, 30 minutes before the sunrise or sometime like that. So longer exposures will give you good dimensionality to your photo. Like you have a nice morning light happening from the back. So that lights up the different layers of mountain. Then you have clouds, and then you have stars. So you can add layers to your photo. I'm sorry if I'm not answering your question straight away because I'm not going through the questions right now. We'll go to the Q&A session once we are done with the basic part, okay? This is another sample of the long exposure. This is single exposure over 900-ish seconds. And you can see the proper star trails happening. And the light which is captured by this Joshua tree is with the moon. I personally am not a big fan of astrophotography, but I like to incorporate it in a very little way in my photographs. So another sample of long exposures. So you have water body, and that's how you can make your water body completely, like a glass, very smooth. And then on the left, you can see the cloud play is crazy because this is right post storm. So storms are really good news. Like usually storms are not good weather, but in landscape scenario, just chase the storms and you will get some really good stuff. One more example, more cloud and water body, same thing. So you must be thinking, how can we achieve this? When we jump into the filter section, I will show you what kind of filters I use. I'll show you some BTS as well. So don't worry, we'll get to each and everything as much as possible. Okay. So yeah, let's talk about light pursuit. So what is a good time to start with? So if you're starting or you have absolutely no idea when to shoot, but you like landscape photography. So um, landscape photography will be slightly different than travel because you are working in very, very odd hours. You will be waking up at 3 a.m. and then you will be driving to the location before sun rises. At least you want to set up your camera 30 minutes before the sunrise, because that's when beautiful light happens. The photographs we saw earlier, this is precisely about 30-35 minutes before the sunrise, and that's why you have nice diffused glow happening. Okay, and right around 5 to 10 minutes after sunrise as well, you will have nice light hitting across the plane, and very nice directional orangish light you will get. And then another time slot is in the evening. It is 5 minutes before the sunset and 45 minutes after the sunset. So those are the two times you want to start shooting. Now, if you're traveling, this is going to be very awkward with people who you travel with. So the idea is if you want to be in landscape photography, not many people will be enthusiastic to join you. Okay, so sunrise and sunset, that's when you get blue hours and golden hour and those beautiful lights. Then you have post storms. So post storms are the best places, best lights you will capture. The clouds are crazy. The cloud the light is coming through the clouds as well. And especially in my general experience, storms usually go off by the time of sunset. Before sunset, they will start happening, and by before like right before the sunset happens, they usually go away. I don't know what is the science behind it. I haven't figured out so far, or never tried to look for it. But that's what happens when you have storms happening, and then you will have crazy lights happening. Let's say it's not cleared out, you can always shoot thunders and lots of cloud movement happening as well. You'll get very moody, dramatic photos. And then if you're shooting late night, if you're staying, let's say post 9 p.m. in the evening, you will be getting nice. I personally like to shoot in a full moonlight because moon does give you very good directional light. So these are the basic things you want to keep in mind in terms of what are the times you will get the perfect light. Other than that, cross your fingers because see, landscape photography is, again, as I said earlier, your preparation meets the opportunity. So it's Mother Nature. You don't know what's going to happen. All right. So let's talk about some basic gears. If you have any questions so far, please keep writing into the question and answer section, and I'll get to it in the midway point somewhere. So let's go through the gears. Oops. There we go. So first you need obviously camera and a lens, and then you need a tripod, filters and softwares. Okay, so these are the major things, software or computer, whatever you call it. So lens and body. Right now, the best investment would be your mirrorless cameras. So they're small, they're insanely capable, and their dynamic range are amazing. So it is very, very difficult in today's time to shoot a bad photograph. Okay, you really have to be terrible to shoot a bad photograph. So anything, invest in a full frame, because see, eventually you will end up at full frame or even medium format if you're serious about landscape photography. But it doesn't mean it will give you the best photos. it is up to you and how you shoot. So you can always shoot with the APS-C sensors, or you can shoot with the micro four third, even hell with the iPhone. Your phones are fantastic as well if you are on correct location. But the idea here is like, you want to use the best equipment which will give you the best. Okay, so something full frame or bigger is the best option. I like full frame. I personally shoot with Z7. So they're really handy and work perfectly for everything. I shoot all the commercial work, all the landscape photography and everything. Next thing, lenses. So with the lenses, you want to understand two things. Thank you. There are two types of lenses. You have zoom lenses and then you have prime lenses. They both have their strengths and weaknesses. So zoom lenses are ridiculously convenient. As per in this example, you can see it's 124 to 70 f4 and the other one is 70 to 200 2.8. The reason I'm showing you these two lenses is because this covers pretty much huge range of focal length you can shoot with. So, and you know, you might have an argument like, okay, then why do we even bother about shooting prime lenses? Prime lenses are really good when it comes to sharpness of the image. You can shoot wide aperture with these lenses, and they are really light to carry. So my recommendation, if you're starting with, get a 24-70 and then eventually invest in 70 to 200. That's what I did. I shot with all the zoom lenses and figured out these are the focal length I'm shooting the most. So then I went ahead and invested in like a 20 millimeter and 35 millimeter and then 85 millimeter and then 135 millimeter. So then I got rid of the zoom lenses and I switched to all the primes. So first you want to figure out which works best for you. In no means these zoom lenses are bad in any way, but primes are just better when it comes to quality, and they're really nice. You can shoot wide open apertures in the night and then you will have a nice shallow depth of field. Okay, so choose your lenses. 24 to 70 f4 is something really good. Like most of the photographs you have seen earlier was shot on 24 to 70, this particular lens. And the other one I used most is 35 1.4 as well, which is the FTZ. I'm using it with the FTZ adapter. Okay, so that is the difference between zooms and primes. Next, we want to talk about is tripod. Now, this is the most essential. Now, you must be thinking like, okay, these tripods, they usually cost like, a good tripod will cost you somewhere around 1 lakh rupees to 1.5 lakh rupees, which is ridiculous amount for a 3-leg thing, you know? It's just a stand. It's a tripod. Why would you invest a lot of money into it? First of all, you are carrying your equipment onto it, which is costing a lot more than that. So you want to invest in something really steady. And I personally like carbon fiber because they are lightweight. Since you are shooting landscape, you are hiking a lot, you're trekking a lot, and you're carrying all that on your back. So you want to have something really light and really sturdy, and that's where the carbon fiber tripod comes in. And when you hit the territory of the carbon fiber, you're definitely putting down some serious money. And the next thing you want to invest in is a really good ball head. So ball heads are really simple. They are very flexible. They will go around. I have my own tripod. I'll show you in a second. So you can, you have really free range of motion, but you need to have a good ball head, which will carry your camera properly. Because, and the worst idea will be when you're shooting portrait mode on your tripod, your tripod stability will go nuts. So for that solution, we have something else as well. But right before that, let me show you my tripod. Okay. So I don't know if you can see it properly or not. So this is a RRS ball head, really right stuff ball head, which is ridiculously sturdy. and it's a single clip. You can get your camera on and off easily. And this is Arca type holder. The other thing is this is a carbon fiber. The legs are Gitzo and the head is RRS. So these are ridiculously lightweight, but it has a really, really nice payload to it as well. It will carry really heavy cameras. So get back to our presentation. Then you're gonna need an L bracket. Now you must be thinking, this will be a very new accessories for a lot of the people. But once you start using it, you cannot go back. Like, this is one of the best investment you will make with your camera, especially you like to shoot on a portrait orientation. This is the best gear you want to own with your tripod. So how does this work? So this is right here. You can see I'm already loaded with L bracket on my Z7. What is amazing about it is I can just load it right here. So this is my camera locked on a standard position. Now, if I want to shoot portrait, I'll just unclip it like this. And there you go. So now my camera, my tripod will be super steady and I will not lose the camera. Because if you're using this way, if you're tilting your ball head, it's a really good chance that your tripod will tip over easily. So one of the really good investment when it comes to landscape photography. Even with the products and everything, this is ridiculously helpful. Okay, so that covers tripod and L bracket. If you are concerned about what kind of L bracket you can get, like the small rig makes good L bracket, then RRS make good L bracket. Three-legged things, they make good L brackets as well. So there are lots of brands. Okay, now filters. Filters, first filter you want to invest is your circular polarizing filter. Okay, so it is this tiny thing. And this is a screw-on type of filter. So you can actually literally screw it on to your camera. And then the part of it will rotate. Okay, what that will do, it will cut down light reflecting at 45 to 33 degree angle, which is called Brewster's angle, which will give you very clear vision on the water reflective surfaces. It can be water, it can be a glass or anything. It will give you nice saturation, especially with the greens, and it will darken the sky as well. So straight away, your all the basic adjustments you do in your post-production can be applied straight away into your photograph. So a must-have accessories when it comes to filters. This is the first filter you want to invest in. Okay, remember how let me go back very quickly and show you this photo. So this photo was shot in a broad daylight, but as you can see, the exposures are ridiculously long. So how do we do that? So for that, you will need a neutral density filter. Neutral density filters are nothing but sunglasses for your camera. So this particular one is n-stop neutral density filter. You will not be able to see through it at all. This will cut down around 10 stops of light straight away. So in a broad daylight, if you want to have some good cloud motion, such as this photograph, this is the filter you want to invest in. Okay, this is pitch black. So that's a neutral density 1000. Okay, let's go forward. All right, then you will have another filter system, which is a slide-in filter system. So for this is really simple. You will have a bracket system, and then in front of it, you can put multiple filters, and then you can manipulate it on top of it. So it is that gradient filter you apply in your post-production. You can have it done properly right away into your camera. Let me show you my system. So first, as you can see, I have already loaded up this ring on the top of my camera. So this is my holder capture ring, and this is the holder I use. This particular one is a Cokin Z Pro system. Cokin is a French company which makes filters only. So what you do is simply slide this in. Okay. There you go. So it looks like this, right? Next thing we want is filters on top of it. So these are gradient neutral density filters. This is very similar to what you have on sunglasses, where you have really darker on the top and then it goes lighter as it goes down. So this is very useful when you are controlling that horizon from the bright sky and everything. So let me show you how that goes. So you simply slide it in. Okay. And it can rotate as well. You can stack one more filter in front of it as well. So if you want to make your top or sides or diagonal more darker. This is a really good investment because, okay, so if you're confused, like, okay, how is this better than, using gradient filter in post-production? But think of this way. When you do anything in post-production, you're basically pushing your file to certain limits. And you will have certain limits to your file. Obviously, there is only a finite adjustment you can do with your files. So with this, you can have your pixels intact. You're not actually decrementing the quality of your photograph, and you will have beautiful skies. In almost all the photographs you have seen, I have used this filter. Okay, let me put this side. All right, so now we're gonna see some of the kind of behind the scenes when I shot all these photographs. This is a Kelso dune from Mojave Desert. And this is the photograph I came up with. Same place, different composition. And this is the photograph. This is Montana. So this way you will have some idea like what kind of location we are shooting in, how much manipulation and camera settings will help you with the photograph. So these are the photographs I came up with from that particular location. So on the left, I'm not using much of the longer shutter speed, and on the right, it is ridiculously longer exposure. Okay. So this is from the same example I showed you guys earlier. As I told you, you have to work the scene. So this is when I was trying to figure out that specific composition to work with, and this is the final photo I absolutely like to use. Okay, so as you can see, the situation is very, very dready. And this is the final photo. And always, like, it's in this particular photo, there's supposed to be a really nice teat on. As you can see, all these photographers are hanging out to get some good photo, but nothing is happening. So yeah, Mother Nature is very different. Like it's not always you're gonna get a great photo, but you can try your best and get the best out of it. And this is the final photo I got. You can see a little tip of the mountain of the Grand Teton on the top, and there's that famous barn. And this is that early morning photo. As you can see, I have stacked up 2 filters. Yeah, so my wife is really amazing. She's tolerating me to, like, I always get her up at 3 or 3:30 a.m. in the morning, and we go to weird locations. She's like really amazing to tolerate all this. And this is the final photograph you'll get. I'll show the location again. There you go. Okay, so now I'm gonna jump into the question part. And then if we have more time, we will jump into the sample post-production as well. So let me stop share here and let me go through all the questions. How did you start your journey from an engineering background? So Anirban, good question. So I always had a camera. So my first camera I got when I was in 6th grade. That was Nikon FM10. That is a 35mm film camera. My dad gave me when I was in 6th grade. So since then, I've been shooting SLR cameras. I've always been passionate about photography. And then eventually, during the engineering, I got a chance to shoot a couple of paid professional assignments, and that's how I shifted over. Please describe about hyperfocal distance during the session for landscape photography. Okay. Hyperfocal distance is to do mainly with how much area you will have in focus. So that is your depth of field, has to do with your focal length. Okay, so that is the answer for Jayendra Chauhan. I'll need to draw and stuff like that to give you more in-depth answer. You can always write me an email. I'll describe you even more because we have lots of questions to go through. But it's mainly depend on your focal length and your depth of field you choose for. So how they vary with each other. Then we have Neeraj Punjabi, webinar of night photography and portrait photography. Oh, that's not for me. Settings for the star trail photo. Okay, so star trails, I have not done anything huge, not any huge brain work. My shutter was literally open for 900 seconds or 500 seconds. ridiculously longer time, because I don't like to stitch photos in a Photoshop. That is just not me. I mean, I love to use Photoshop. It's nothing wrong with it, but I just don't like to do the star trails and that compositing part. I used to do that like 10, 12 years ago, but now I just like to incorporate nicely with the environment it has and the single exposure of the sky itself. Okay, so just longer and longer shutter speed, and you can always keep your ISO slightly higher. So let me see if I have one sample right here. I can show you the exif data of the photograph as well. And this. So I'll give you 2-3 variation so you can have some clear idea on that. Okay, so we have seen this photograph earlier in the presentation, right? Now, I'm not sure if you can see the EXIF data or not, but this is 977 seconds exposure. Aperture was f8, focal length is 35, and ISO is 64 for this particular photo. And this is the color version of it. The other sample is now this particular photo is aperture is 1.4 and focal length 35. Exposure time is only 15 seconds, but my ISO is all the way 800. So that way you will be able to capture lots of light from environment into your photograph straight away. But here you will not have a star trail, you will just have stars. Okay, so hope that helps. Let me go to the next question. How to decide that the photo will look good in black and white or the colors? Okay, so how do I decide if the photograph is going to look good in color or black and white? Usually when I'm shooting black and white, I know when you have a good contrast happening, when you have extremely blue sky and really orangish or red palette on the foreground or your main subject, that's where you'll see lots of contrast. So I just put on my actual red filter on front of the camera and then I shoot for the black and white itself. So it's weird to shoot black and white, I shoot red color to have a higher contrast. So that way I can decide. But since you're shooting digital, it's always color in a way. So shoot color and then you can always figure it out in the post-production. What about beach areas like Maldives, Mauritius, etc.? What about that? I'm sorry, I didn't get the questions. They're really beautiful places. If you like coastlines and ocean, you can always go ahead and shoot over there. Yeah, but make sure you use a nice circular polarizing filter over there, because water body can be manipulated nicely with the circular polarizing filters. Priyank, this is the photographs I showed you earlier are edited photos, but they are not. There are no information added or removed from the photograph. They are their photograph as is. It is just contrast and local adjustment corrections, nothing more than that. So once we are done with this, if we have time, we will jump into the very quick editing part of the photograph as well. Yes, Pebble is also an example. Yeah, that is correct. Is mobile shutter speed work well with landscape? Tushar, yes, but you will not be able to go with a really long exposures with mobile. So Can you explain how you capture stars? Asta, I have captured stars as I showed you earlier in the example on the photographs. I use longer shutter speeds. Sometimes I kept wide open apertures. So if you want that trail, you want really longer shutter speed because you want to show that rotation of the Earth. And if you want to show stars only stationary, you want to stay inside 15 seconds marker, because if you go beyond that, if you go 20 or 30, you will start seeing those stars getting blurry. On a safer side, you want to go 10 seconds to keep the stationary stars. But in that case, you will have to increase your ISO and you want to drop down your aperture as well. Okay, so hope that helps. I saw stars but cannot shoot Milky Way in the photo. Plus, in a video properly, how do I shoot Milky Way video? Please guide. Arco, what you can do is use a really wide angle lens and a wide open aperture, like 1.8 or something like that. So my personal favorite is 20mm 1.8 lens. That helps me to shoot really wide and really wide open aperture as well. That will induce a lot of light. Now you want to increase your ISO as well. Another thing, when you shoot astro, it's really simple. You want to go away from the populated area, so you will not have air pollution happening a lot. And you want to use application. Let me show you something which can help you actually. So if you, obviously all of you guys are using smartphones and there are many applications that will help you when it comes to landscape photography. I personally use photo pills. So as you can see on the right bottom, the application called photo pills. That is a really good application which will help you with your star trails, your night AR, meteor showers, everything. So if I just do this, as you can see, it will show me live in the AR and my Milky Way will be somewhere here. Okay. So this application is really, really helpful. Okay. Which camera is the best for landscape photography? Parthiv, any camera is good for landscape photography. It is more about going to the location at a correct time and compose it nicely, understand the light, and then worry about the camera. So if you have an iPhone, even iPhone will take great photos. But to go to the highest potential, you will need a good gear. So if you're really planning to invest for landscape photography, I would recommend full frame or bigger sensors. Okay. Do you use any filter on the lens using longer shutter speeds and keeping I think Kaushal Mehta, I have already answered with the filter part. In the long exposure as well, if I need to cut down specific area, then I will use my ND filters on that. Okay. Or even circular polarizing filter. So light is a light end of the day. When we shoot in longer shutter speed, how to maintain exposure? You can use light meter obviously, and you can shoot a couple of test photos. You're not shooting film, don't worry about it. If you're shooting film, if you're like me, I shoot lots of film as well. So with film, you have to worry about the reciprocity failure. That is something when your exposure, when you go longer exposure than 1 minute or maybe 30 seconds, or depend on the film. So their chemical reaction slows down. So you want to compensate for that slowing down of the chemical process. So you want to expose for even longer. So that is a reciprocity failure. That is something you are dealing with when you're shooting films. But we are shooting digital, so not a big deal. You can always test trial it. In 900-second, won't image will look overexposed? No, because light is less. You want to induce a lot of light. So it can be 900-second, it can be 2 hours, it can be anything. It depends on how much light you have. Tell us about HDR. I personally don't do HDR. What camera setting should I keep? So HDR is basically high dynamic range. So you want to capture all the details in the highlights, and you want to capture all the details in the shadow. So you want to overexpose one photo, and you want to underexpose one photo, or maybe five photos. And then you compress all of them together, and you retain all the details. Now the problem with HDR is it's weird, because you're showing two-dimensional image, and if you're doing HDR into that, you're killing the dimension, because if you want to show something three-dimensional into 2D plane, you want to have three things. You want to have specularities, you want to have diffused values, and you want to have shadows. When you go crazy on HDR, you're killing all three things. You're making a photograph completely flat. So I highly do not recommend HDR, but if you like it, just simple bracket the photographs in a pattern of 5 or 3 photos, and you'll be fine. You can use Photoshop or Lightroom to stack them as well. Can you elaborate a picture of stars revolving around the Joshua? I'm curious about the picture. Okay, so as I showed you earlier, in the Photo Pills app, I figured out, okay, this is the particular Joshua tree I like. I adjusted my angle according to it. And then I literally open it for, let's say, first trial was, I think, 100 or 200 seconds. So I figured out, okay, the rotation is right. And then I went all the way. I kept, as I showed you earlier in the EXIF, I kept the rotation, I kept the aperture at 8 and ISO 64. And that's about it. So it took me a couple of trials. Obviously, there is see, being a good landscape photographer is you have to be really good at failures. There is no instant success. You will be disappointed every single step. So, just heads up. Which lens can be used on a crop Nikon DSLR cameras for landscape? I think any lens is good. See, landscape photography doesn't mean you want to shoot wide only. I shoot many of the photographs over 50 millimeter of the focal length in full frame. So any focal length which works best for your composition sense is the good lens. That was the answer for Suraj. Can you please explain again rule of thirds? Yes, I can. Rule of thirds. Okay. So if you can see the screen on the top left, that's a rule of thirds. So you want to divide your frame as a tic-tac-toe table, and then 4 intersecting point, that's where you want to place your subject. So basically you dividing your frame into 1/3 and 2/3. Okay. In any way, it can be in any direction. It can be up and down. It can be sideways as well. So this is a really good example of rule of thirds. So my tree is leaning towards the negative area. So wherever it is leaning, whenever you have directional value to your photograph or your subject, you want to provide some negative space wherever the direction they're heading to. So my tree is kind of leaning on this side. So imagine if I kept open area on the right side, that will not be helpful. Our brain will not process it right. So if it has a directional value, you want to support it with the negative spaces. And that's how, that is the reason I placed it on the right. And on the left, I have a supporting element, secondary supporting element, which is this little mountain. So hope this helped. Okay, next question. We have, if you could share the lens exposure and exposure for the photograph you are displaying. Bani Dillon. I am not sure which photograph you were talking about. Bani Dillon, which photograph is that you're talking about? I'm not sure. So please elaborate a little bit more. Will we receive recording in Instagram? Okay, I don't know, Divyansh. That is something you want to ask the host.
The recording, sir, will be posted on Facebook, not on Instagram. It will be posted on Facebook by today or tomorrow morning.
Disha Jain, you've not been able to see the presentation. I hope that has been resolved. I'm really sorry. I'm like over 30 minutes late to answer your question. How to shoot thunders, long exposures. Anirban, if you think the thunders and lightning are happening, set up your camera, make sure you're safe, and longer exposure will help, like 10 seconds or something like that. And you want to keep shooting because you never know where the thunder is gonna happen, obviously. So what you can do is keep your composition exactly set and keep exposing one by one over and over. So when the thunders are, you can collect small thunders as well, and put them together in a single image as well. Please elaborate leading lines. Okay. Leading lines. Good example for leading lines would be this. Yeah. So, sorry. So in this particular photograph, as you can see, there's rocks, and then you have water body. So any elements in your frame, in your composition, which will lead your sub-viewer's eye in a specific direction. In this case, it is leading directly towards center top of the photograph. That can be a good example for leading lines. Okay, so it can be anything. It can be any repetitive shapes. Okay, so hopefully that was satisfactory. Can we see your photographs of directional full moon night shot? Yes, you can, Abhiraj. Let me pull out a good example for you. So yeah, take a look at this. So this is 35mm f1.4 ISO 64. So you have really neat and clean image, and this nice directional moonlight. As you can see, there's some nice long shadow, and the Joshua tree is lit up very nicely at 45 degrees. So this is a good example for directional moonlight. Okay, let me see if I have any other example for that as well. Okay, yeah, this one. This is pure moonlight. So all the things you do with sun, you can do with the moon, but at a longer exposure. That is the idea. Please name best software. I personally like to use two softwares, Lightroom and Photoshop. You can always use Capture One, whatever works best for you. Okay, so I usually start with the Lightroom, usually finish in Lightroom as well. Sometimes I have to go to Photoshop for certain adjustments. How to get best picture in a cloudy weather? Viral Pathak, go longer exposures, man. If you have lots of cloud, make sure you use them. You can use their motion. Which software would you recommend for editing photos? Start with Lightroom again. How will crop sensor affect landscape photography? It doesn't affect landscape photography. You just have more details in full frame cameras. That's pretty much it. Crop sensors makes fantastic photos. There's no argument about it. But in low light, generally, full frame cameras function better. What are the considerations to be taken for landscape capture with mobile camera? Nilesh, this is a good point. If you really want to work your composition, if you really want to understand light, shoot with your mobile camera more often whenever you get us. But the consideration would be pay attention to the composition, how you frame things, how you incorporate each element into your frame, and time of the day where you have good light, or even night. I don't know, night photography will be quite difficult on a mobile, but you can surely try. What are the cameras and lenses one should get? Bunny Dillon. So yeah, sorry, I missed one question. Lightroom or Photoshop for post-producing photographs? Arco, you have to have both. They are not replaceable. Bunny Dillon. So what are the camera and lenses one should get? You want to get one full frame camera. You want to get one zoom lens, and that's about it. Okay, I explained about moon directional light already. So hope that answers. Mr. Murak. Sharon Nori. Okay, what should be the ISO sensitivity during the night? Okay, if you want lots of motion, your exposure is really long, you want to have lower ISO. In generally landscape photography, you want to have lower ISO to get good picture quality, obviously. But in scenarios where you want lots of sky details, like if you're shooting Milky Way or something like that, and you're in that cases, and you don't want your stars to move, so you want to reduce your shutter speed under 10 seconds or something like that, at that point you will have to increase your ISO. There is no other option. Okay, what is the importance of the golden ratio? It's simply composition. You can practice over and over. It is kind of rule of thirds, but more complex. Oops, where'd it go? My Q&A. Okay, you can't hear me, solve the okay, I'm really sorry, Arunima. Nikon D3400, hope your problem resolved. So D is a good starter camera. Yeah, absolutely. 3400D is a fantastic camera to start with. Okay, thank you for joining the webinar. What is highlight, midtone, and shadows? Okay, so Balaji has a question. What is highlight, midtones, and shadows? Let me open a photograph and explain it to you. Okay. In this photograph, all the bright areas, so this right here, all the bright areas are called highlights. All the well-lit areas like these are midtones. And all the dark areas are the shadows, such as this or this. Okay, it's really as simple. Oops. All right, next question. Yeah, Jayendra Chauhan, I already answered your question, I guess. Then what camera do you suggest to give really beautiful results without any edit? Shrishti Singh, to good camera to have without edit, any camera is good basically. You want to control, you want to be acquaintance nicely with your picture control of the camera. So you can choose landscape mode or vivid mode or anything like that. So that will help you a lot. And you can always fine tune into your camera as well. What brand do I recommend for ND filters? Hoya is a good start. I personally use B plus W mainly. So they tend to go slightly expensive, but it is just like 1 or 2% improvement over Hoya. So Hoya, you can go ahead. Okay, so with filters, all of you guys need to have one thing very clear in mind. You are adding one piece of glass in front of the lens. So you're paying some premium money to have those fantastic lenses to give you the best performances, and then you're adding one more glass. Adding more glass basically reduces the sharpness. So you want to invest in a good glass, which you're adding in front of it, which will give you the best quality results. So, you know, you cannot get away from spending money. That is the big problem we all have. So, all right, while doing next, single focus or autofocus, whatever works for you. You can do manual focus if you want. Okay, make sure you're focusing it. That's the most important part. Vivek, I'm very sorry for no sound. Hopefully that issue is resolved. Can you once again read neutral density filters? Okay, neutral density filters are really simple. Sayoni, right? Yeah. Neutral density filters are simply the sunglasses for your camera. They are cutting down the light neutrally. They are not shifting any colors or anything. They're keeping everything as is, but they're just reducing light straight away. Nothing more than that. So sunglasses for your camera. Okay. What are the way are earning in landscape photographer as a landscape photographer? Okay. Sabyasachi has this question. That is a very good question. You can always start with making your collection. So that is the phase which is most expensive. It is something. See, that is the difference between being professional and being an artist. You make your product first, you make your art first, and then you go out and expect it to sell it. You expect people to buy it. So you want to generate a really nice collection. You want to keep it very limited, and then um, start showcasing your work at really good places. Make sure you place your stuff in a really good galleries and stuff like that, which is a really long run. It's not something like a commercial or wedding photography that you finish a job and you got the money straight away. It's a longer process, and there are lots of other avenues into landscape photography as well. You can sell it as stock, you can sell it to hotels, you can sell it to architecture firm. You can have a collaboration with them as well. So you want to explore it, because according to what kind of landscape photography you shoot, what kind of person you are, what kind of network do you have, and where you want your work to be seen, everything answers that way. Vivek, I'm really sorry about the sound again. Can you name the filter that is pitch black? It is ND 1000. So that is gonna cut down like 10 stops. Can you also share about focus points, as in where you try to focus in landscape with multiple things? Okay, yeah, Madhur, that is a very good question. Usually I try in focusing, you want to keep in mind one thing. Wherever you focus, you will have 1/3 of your foreground and 2/3 of your background in focus. What do I mean by that? Let me share screen again. Okay, suppose in this photograph, if I want all this grass in the front to be nicely focused and area in the background at infinity to be focused as well, I want to focus somewhere around right after the grass ends. Okay, so that way I will have 1/3. So 1/3 of my camera and 2/3 of the background. So that way I'll have most area covered. Okay. Can you explain filter part one more time? Yes, Surya, I can. So first of all, you want to have the most important filter you want to own is a circular polarizing filter. Where did those guys go? Yeah, there we go. Okay, so this is a circular polarizing filter. I keep like 2-3 of these guys because I keep using it on different lenses and they rotate. So that way you can control a very specific angle where you want to cut the reflection. So in a very basic definition of circular polarizing filter is going to cut the reflections. It's going to cut lights coming from a certain direction. And as you rotate, those directions will change. Okay. So that way you can control reflections, you can darken the skies, look through the water and increase saturation. So that is your circular polarizing filter. And then you have these guys. So as I showed you earlier, this is a bracket system and you can simply slide in different filters you own at different density and different transition. Okay, hope that helps. Could you recommend some lenses? Karthik, Ramesh, I can recommend you some of the lenses, but I really don't know what you like. It is very much personal choice. So I recommend get a 1 or 2 zoom lenses, figure it out what focal length you really like, and then invest onto the prime. I know I sound like I'm making you more expenses and everything, but that is the one way to do it. Or you can try out your friend's lenses or somebody's lenses and then figure out this is the focal length you use the most, and go ahead and buy that particular lens. But yeah, your prime lenses will have a superior photo quality than zooms any day. How are you funding your travels? Yeah, Atul, that's a straight on question, man. I like it. Mostly I shoot commercial projects. When I started, I shoot commercial projects. I shoot weddings and everything. That money is literally poured into making the collection, and now I started selling my landscape photography. So now it is a different scenario, but when I started, when I wanted to fund my travels, that's how I did it. Of course, sacrifices must be made. It's real simple. All right, next, Kapil Bhatia. What is the best post photography software to use? I'm a beginner. Lightroom, and Kapil, get Lightroom. In a mountain shoot, where will you focus? Mahesh, in a mountain shoot, I usually focus somewhere slight before the mountain if I have really a high depth of field. So that way I can have some foreground and the mountains are in focus nicely. You don't want to focus all the way to the mountains unless you're shooting with the tele lenses. Can you suggest some good camera for beginners to invest on? Mira, good question, but I really would love to know what is your budget. Because see, if you're thinking about, okay, I'm a beginner and I don't want to spend a lot of money, that's good. But eventually you will be spending more money on the full frame cameras anyway, or maybe a medium format camera. So eventually you'll be making that expenses anyway if you're really passionate about it. So I would say jump right away and make a good investment. Make investment which will actually help you. So you can finally get away from the gears and pay attention to the things that matters. Okay, such as planning your travels, paying attention to your education of photography, paying attention to plan your travels and locations and understanding compositions and lighting and stuff like that. Okay, so when it comes to investment, tripod and camera system, that's where you want to spend good buck straight away, because eventually you will be buying that anyway. So you will end up spending way more money than you actually should. So hope that helps. I know I'm trying my best, but you will spend a lot of money if you're buying the cheaper things right now, and then eventually you'll be buying the expensive ones. Okay, so yeah, I think I already did filter part. How to get into paid landscape photography and marketing? Nitin, I already answered that. Fresher, I have Canon D1200, 1200D. Okay, a basic one. Please suggest me lens. Rahul, you want to stick to 1855, that basic lens it came with. put your money for your travel and location scouting, and maybe filters if you really want gears. Okay, because landscape photography is lots of physical work and planning and everything rather than playing with gears. And yeah, make sure you're really fit. If you're not fit, landscape photography is not going to help you. Like, it's going to be very difficult. Okay. Soumi Tribedi, I think I already answered that question about how to make money and look for assignment. So there are no assignment when it comes to usually landscape photography, unless you're shooting for somebody like maybe a travel agency or a tourism department, which is very rare. In this case, you are mainly producing your work and then look for the buyers. It's the other way around than the commercial assignments. How do I start earning from landscape and travel photography? Amit, I think I already answered that. Authentic resource to study before going to a place for landscape. Saurabh Shada, this is a really good question, finally. You really want to start looking at really far off location, you can always go crazy on Google Earth. You can look at others photography work, because see, even if the location is shot million times, you might have a completely new composition and the lighting, because see, your light and atmosphere is like, it's gonna change every single time, so it's not gonna be same every single day. So if you go to Yosemite, you might get a completely new photograph than the others. So look at others work, look at the tourism of different countries, look for the countries which are not so much explored, like Far East Russia or something like that, or even UNESCO sites in Italy. So those things are crazy. You don't have to go to Iceland for landscape photography. So that would be the resources. Which camera is best for taking? And yeah, go through the magazines like National Geographic and stuff like that. They have those far off locations documented nicely. Which camera is best for taking landscape photography? Any camera is good, Parthiv. While landscape, single point focus, and if you want very specific, get a full frame camera, okay? If you have money, go for Z7. That is the camera I would recommend, because it has everything you can think of. And the beauty about Z7, the color science is ridiculously good. Like right off this particular photo, which is open right now in my presentation, that is straight JPEG. I did not do anything to it. Okay, focus modes. Let me see, focus modes. Little insight on focus. I think if I have the camera, I'll be able to, if I can share the screen of my camera, I can show you. But mainly focus modes, you want to be in a single point, autofocus, which will focus and it will be steady. It will not be active. So you want to keep the drive of the focus on a single point, single servo, or manual. Those two modes are more preferable in landscape photography, because you're not shooting something really moving elements. Okay, please share focus stacking for landscape photography. Focus stacking, I personally don't do much. I genuinely like to use shallower depth of field in my landscape work. But focus stacking is really simple. You want to focus in different distances, and then you stack it into the Photoshop. You can now Z6 and Z7 camera can do the automatic focus stacking for you. So take a look into that as well. I personally don't like to composite photographs a lot, because if you're selling your as a print or in the gallery or somewhere, your photographs will lose value if they are composite. in the art world, they don't have value if your photographs are heavily edited or composite. You want to be as authentic as possible. Suggestion for budding landscape photographer: what parameters should I mainly look for? They don't bother you much, and they are knowledgeable photographers, and they are genuinely passionate about it, not just a weekend warrior or something like that. Okay, and obviously respectful. It's like a good friend, but who is passionate about photography. And budding photographers can be like, you are on the same location, but you guys are paying attention to the different things. You don't have to copy the shots all the time. So look for somebody who you can acquire something from them. You can learn something from them. How to take landscape of my nearby places during the pandemic, just standing up on my stairs? I can't. Yes, Vasant, this is difficult right now. Shooting landscapes in pandemic is difficult. Hopefully things will open, and we will be able to go places. So, but yeah, that's not much we can do. We want to stay in home. We have to get this thing controlled. If you're going to bulk mode, that is a longer shutter now. Now, bulk mode is really simple. It's not longer or shorter shutter. How long you have pressed your shutter and released it, that's a bulk mode. It's a like manual shutter. That is a bulk mode. So how will I manage? As I said earlier, Surya, I do test shots. If I'm shooting digital, if I'm shooting film, I absolutely use a light meter and calculate accordingly. Please give tips on doing landscape photography with mobile too. Divyansh, it's with mobile, it's really simple. You want to pay attention to the time, location, composition, light. That's all. Suggest good location near Ahmedabad for landscape photography. Nainesh, that is crazy because I just finished a book on Thor Lake, which is basically a bird sanctuary, but I haven't shot any birds over there. And I'm still looking for some of the more locations nearby. You can always go to Kutch. Kutch is beautiful. I haven't started shooting over there so far, but eventually I will. And you want to explore on your own, like you have to go far out because good landscapes are happening. Even Eder is pretty awesome. So northern Gujarat is fantastic. So try different locations on your own. You don't know what you end up with. Top best places in India to shoot landscape. I personally like Himachal a lot. Some people like it. Some people like Kerala. If you like greenery, go for Kerala. If you like mountains, go Himachal. If you like desert, Rajasthan is there. There are lots of things. Sikkim, like East India, is amazing. You really want to explore that as well. How full frame are better over crop sensors? Saurabh, it's really simple. You will have more real estate to work with. So if you have 24 megapixels on APS-C and 24 megapixels on full frame, your size of the receptors on full frame will be quite bigger. Now, bigger receptors will receive better quality of light. That's why bigger sensors are better. So when it comes to that, the medium format sensors are better than full frame. Full frames are better than APS-C. APS-Cs are better than micro four thirds. It's all about real estate and how many pixels you are cramming into it. Exposure tips for capturing snow-clad mountains in black and white. Yogesh Rao, Yogesh, use red filters. If you're shooting black and white, get a red filter right away. Like, let me see best. I think R27 or something like that. Let me. Yeah, 25A. Get a Hoya 25A. Okay. Can you tell about type of photography? Anupama, I guess I'm not getting your question. Sorry. Starters, you use filter in the night time as well. Ankit, if I need to, I will use the filter in the night time as well, and I increase the exposure time. It depends. If I want to control the specific areas, I will have to use the filters. What do you think, which is best time according to you for a click a landscape? Go to the location before sunrise. Stay after sunrise about 15 minutes minimum, and then before a sunset, like 15 minutes before sunset to 30 minutes after sunset. That is a pretty much good time. Is it compulsory to follow all the rules in landscapes and nature photography? Siva, absolutely not. Rules are just merely suggestions to get you started. Once you're good at it, you can explore your own way. You can compose everything on your own. There are no rules. Explore it. I would love if you do not follow the rules and explore something on your own. Okay, so yeah, don't worry about it. You said 20 millimeter and 35 millimeter. How wide is too wide when it capturing landscape, which is an ideal focal length? Bragadesh, there is no wide is too wide or tele is too tele on a specific numbers. But if you see lots of distortions happening, like 16 millimeter or something like that, where you see like crazy things are like stretching out of your frame and stuff like that, that is where you want to stop. So 20 is something I really like to shoot. Even 16 is too wide for me, but that is up to your taste. So figure it out. That's all I can actually suggest you. Any recommendation on wide lenses for the crop sensors? Sarada, I think for the crop, I'm not really aware of. I'm going to be very honest with you, because last time I have used the crop sensor camera was, I think, 15 years ago. So, but you can always check out on DX or something like that, and stick to prime lenses. Prime lenses are generally superior than zooms when it comes to quality. Crop sensor lenses. I'm sorry, guys, not too much, but as I answered earlier, stick to primes. They will help you. You can always get, I think, 10 by 1024, something like that for the crop sensor. They have like ultra wide as well, so you will have nice range to work with as well. What is the difference between good and a great photograph? Shraddha. So Shraddha, it's absolutely up to you. Difference between good photograph and a great photograph is, first of all, if you are satisfied with the photograph or not. And secondary, if you are satisfied, it's not like checking the boxes like, okay, this photograph is good and this is great and this is absolutely fantastic. No, it's first of all, if you're satisfied with it or not.
Hello.
Sorry, it went off.
So am I audible?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Okay, so there are like a lot of questions to go through. Okay.
Yeah, no issues, sir. If you want to continue, you can continue with the questions.
Okay. Yeah, because
if you have a time crunch or something, we can stop it. There's not an issue.
Not really. I can go on.
Okay, if there are a few, I guess I also read some questions. There are many of the questions which are repeated.
Yeah, so I'm gonna just quickly skip on that.
Okay.
Yeah, so difference between good and great photographs, it's up to you. See, don't ever photograph for somebody else's approval or somebody else's praises or something like that. Okay, it has to satisfy your passion, and it has to satisfy what you've been working hard for. So that is a difference between good and great. And trust me, if you shot a great photograph today, maybe after a year or down the line 5 years, you might not find it great. It's a good chance you evolve as a photographer. How do you decide negative space in the photograph? When you have something specific as a subject, then you have a positive space, and whatever is not your subject turns into a negative space. Okay. Companies like Nikon offer any jobs to travel and nature photographers? No, I don't think they do. So Siva is asking, like, Nikon and Canon offer any job for the travel and nature photographers? If how can we try and get it? Siva, if there is a job, I'm not aware of. Okay. Can you let me know about the Samyang 14 2.8? Sandeep, I have not used Samyang 14 millimeter, so I will not be able to answer you that one. Type of photographer, Anupama. Okay, I think this is. I still, Anupama, make sure you write the question completely in a proper one sentence. I'm really sorry. I'm not getting it. Can you tell me more about the filters? We have already done the shutter speed for the capturing. Capturing sky has to do with more with exposures, and shutter speed has to do with the things which are moving. Maybe a cloud, maybe it can be clouds, it can be stars, it can be Milky Way. Amazing stuff. Your long exposure. How do you decide how long to keep the shutter open? Nilangshu, thank you. You can. So you need to start, let's say, with the longer exposure. Start with the 10 seconds. So if you want your stars to move, you want to go beyond 500 seconds. You want to keep your stars steady, then stay around 10 seconds. And with the water flow, to control water flow, you have to see how fast the water is flowing and how closer it is relative to your camera distance. Okay, but you can always give it a couple of test shots and you'll figure it out. So just brands. Sankirtana. Good filter brands in India. I think Hoya is very accessible. Krishnan, I do hyperfocal distance generally for everything, not just to get sharp photo. In general, it is very helpful concept to understand. Longer shutter speed, bulb mode. Okay, so bulb mode. If your camera doesn't have a specific time mode or something like that, you need to have a external remote trigger. So that way you can, you don't want to touch your camera while you do longer exposure. Obviously, you want to have some kind of remote exposure. So I use an app for my camera, or sometimes I just use the 2-second timer, and you can use it with the bulb as well. So click on and click off kind of thing. Building skyscraper can be used in landscape photography. Why not, Uma? You can use anything in landscape photography. It can be an urban landscape, you know. How do you get sharp picture? Focus it correctly, expose it nicely, and you will have a sharp photo. The name of that application is PhotoPills. Please name the carbon fiber tripod and what factors apart from the camera and lens with which to be used considering while drawing conclusion for weight carrying capacity of a tripod. So usually when you buy a tripod legs and tripod head, you will see the payload capacity of the particular tripod and head. So make sure that is, you know, more than what you are putting on your camera. Maybe weigh your camera body and the biggest lens, the heaviest lens, and it should be easily, that payload should be easily bigger than that. Okay, and the name of that carbon fiber tripod is Gitzo. I'm gonna write down. Okay. Krishnan Roy, please answer. Sorry, Krishnan. Okay. Yes, I already answered that. Can you please repeat which all filters are required? Yeah, circular polarizing filter, neutral density filters. Which brand is best and affordable? I think in India we can have a small rig. Small rig you can easily access in India. There are others as well, like a three-legged thing is a good brand when it comes to our brackets. We are not confined to sweet spot of the aperture. Usually, you will have now newer lenses. They have a good range of sweet spot. So, um, let's say my 35 millimeter has sweet spot from all the way from f4 to f11, but not necessarily, because even if you go f22, you have some diffractions happening, so it will lose the sharpness of the image, but you can control that in post production as well. So in that specific scenario, your for you don't have to stick to sweet spot of the aperture at all. Christian, focal length is absolutely depending on what composition I'm shooting at. So, and sharp picture has to do with your lens, how well you have focused, and how much micro contrast does your lens have. So pretty much all the newer lenses, they're fantastic. Okay, so Sanjeev, thank you first of all. Yeah, they are more dramatic and pleasant. So first of all, I use multiple filters to add that drama. And then in the post-production, I use Nikon's original profile of landscapes, and then I do lots of local adjustment to draw your eye in a specific way. How many types of photographers are there? There are lots of types of photographers. I mean, there is no specific classification like that. Okay. UV filters are useful when not when it comes to picture quality, but as a protection, it is good. So if you're shooting somewhere where lots of, especially on the coastline or somewhere where you have lots of ocean water in contact, I personally don't like to expose my front end element of the lens. So that's where I would like to use UV filters. Is down must have accessories for landscape photography. Yes, I have listed down must have accessories for the landscape photography in the gear list. Where it go? There we go. This is some of the must have accessories. How to capture fast moving objects? Usually you don't have fast moving objects when it comes to landscape photography. That's a whole different area we have to discuss about sports photography or journalistic photography. So, but yeah, usually fast moving object, if you want to capture, just higher shutter speed will help you. I think I have this question like 100 times. There is any courses for landscape photography where this is the where is the best college? Also, what are the requirements for the courses? So Parthiv, you can go for many different educational platform. So you can join any academy nearby you. Even I have my own institute. I provide online courses as well. So look for everything around. Okay, you can always contact me if you want to learn one-to-one as well. Okay, please explain bigger about negative space. I already did that. What is the difference between rule of thirds and golden rule? Did that. Golden rule, I don't have the visuals right now, so I'll not be able to explain as of this particular lecture. explains symmetry when you actually can, divide your photograph in two parts, horizontally or vertically. That's usually the symmetry. Good budget lens for landscape photography. I think any standard zoom lenses are good budget lens. Sharad is asking what brand of filters do I use. I use Hoya, I use B plus W, and I use Kokin. Let me write down those for you. How do you choose your subject in location? Usually it is, if it's very eye catchy for you, that's your subject straight away. So, but how you want to shoot it, that's a whole different question. So that's where your working the scene part comes in. Good camera cable release. I stopped using cable release a while ago, so I'm not sure. I think your branded cable release would be the perfect, your proprietary. So if you're using Canon, you want to have Canon cable release, or if you're Nikon, you have to have a Nikon one. And now I just use app, or maybe just straight away from the camera. Process of post-production, I would love to explain it to you, but as of right now, we have a huge time crunch, because that's a whole separate session we can have on post-production, because there are so many things in it. So, but I can straight away show you before and after. So this is the photograph I showed you guys earlier. So this is how I shot. This is the original photograph. And after post-production, you can have some more details to it. UV filters are useful for the protection of the lens, mainly, nothing more than that. What are the dates behind? Oh, that is just some of the dates I would like to remember. Next question is how to add shades to highlight and lines in the line of. Okay, Sabyasachi, that's a good question. You have to learn the concept of dodging and burning to precisely manipulate light in post production. Okay. Can you show some basic post production? No, I will not have much time for the basic post production for that matter. We can have an absolutely separate session for the landscape post production, because there are so many things, there are so many variables involved that we, if I show you one thing, there will be a half knowledge and you might end up doing something wrong. Obviously, it will be a bad example of education. Other tips to focus in the dark. You can have assisting light. You can get a torch and use that as a focus, like a really high power torch. Okay, so that might help you. Please share some of the landscape shots. I don't have on hand with me any of the landscapes I shot from the mobile as of right now. Best time to capture stars, night. Really, like, wait for night to kick in nicely. You will not have any kind of light leaks happening from the environments, and then you will have the very clear vision of stars. Okay. And if you want extremely clear stars, make sure there is no moon happening. Okay, so no moon nights are the perfect. I can show you some of the example right now. Me just okay. For example, this photo. So this is a good example where you can push the files nicely. Okay, so this is what I shot. And this is what I got so far. Best setting for shooting Milky Way, high ISO and wide open aperture will help you. And don't go beyond 10 seconds. Fujifilm mirrorless cameras are pretty good. Nothing to worry about. All the brands are pretty fantastic nowadays. You cannot go wrong. Okay. Like any good painting, the good landscape photograph should have the various tones like highlight, midtones, and shadow. That is very correct. Srinjana. Anish, okay, you would like to work with me. That is great. What are you gonna do in landscape with me? But yeah, I'll share my email and everything at the end of this session, so you can get in contact with me. This is my website and my Instagram handle, just in case if you want to get in contact with me. You can go ahead and follow my Instagram as well to stay updated with my landscape work. Let me go back to the questions. How can we check the Hoya or any other brand is original or fake? Okay, good question. Even I don't know how to do that, but usually their packing, you can tell by their packing how well they are packed. Okay. Struggle to find the perfect focus. Sanket, if you are focusing for the stars or Milky Way, make sure you want to zoom in on your screen all the way, and then you want to manually focus in a way that the dot of the star is the smallest in the size. That's where you will have the perfect infinity focus. Any website we can learn? Who is your mentor? I have many different mentors, so I collect knowledge from everybody. So, but not any mentors are specifically for the landscape. Landscapes is something I just do on my own. Website, you can have nice general knowledge from website like Luminous Landscapes. They're good source for lots of education. How can I earn from pictures? Wait, make your collection, get into the gallery game. After sunset, it is not so much useful, but if you have somewhere the light is happening, you can always, control that reflections. But most of the cases in the night, CP is not that much useful. After landscape photography course, you don't get a job. You generate a fund and travel and make your collection. There's no job after that. Price tag about a standard CP filter for Hoya should be around 4,000 rupees or something to start with, and everything from uphill from there. Is a pitch black filter, and then we can focus. Okay, so if you're using that pitch black filter, that ND1000 filter, you want to focus beforehand and then you put the filter on. It's quite simple. Which lens should we buy for landscape photography? Any lens is good for landscape photography. What stop filter should we buy? Okay, I think you're talking about the ND filters. So you can get a standard kit of ND filters of ND2, ND4, and ND8. So there is 1, 2 stops and 3 stops. So you can start with that. And if you want really good dramatic effect, you can just get ND1000 straight away. ND filter usually do not, I mean, they see how good ND filters you're buying, it depends on that. But yeah, general idea, if you're adding a glass in front of your lens, you're definitely losing the quality a little bit. But you can usually compensate that in the post-production. Well, shooting solar eclipse, you will be pointing your camera to the sun. So obviously you don't want to put your eye right away in the viewfinder. That's there. And that ND1000 filter kind of things will be very helpful. So neutral density filter will help you not to damage your sensor straight away. So yeah, get ND1000 straight away. Which brand do I recommend for tripod, ball head, and L bracket? For tripod, you can get Gizzo. You can get really right stuff. You can get Manfrotto if you want to, keep it in the price range. Manfrotto is a good option. For the ball head, again, you can obviously try Manfrotto, but Manfrottos tend to be a little bit heavier. My personal favorite ball head is really right stuff. They're BH55 and BH40. I think BH40 is the perfect for landscape. And L bracket, you can get it from three-legged thing or really right stuff, or you can get it from small rig. Next question. Seth, you don't need to count focus points for landscape photography. You can have a manual focus and generate fantastic photos. Travel or photography should always be together, or it can be different, or it will definitely be different. Because if you're shooting landscape, when most of the people are enjoying and going around and having food and stuff like that, those times you'll be sleeping, and when everybody's sleeping, you'll be out there going to your location and shooting stuff. So that's a very different thing. Any better version after D40X? Any camera you buy today, Sharan, is better than D40X, because it's like, I think it's 13, 14 years ago, I guess. Sony A7S II primary video camera, an option to start. I think A7S II is not worth using for landscape photography. For landscape photography, you need a higher resolution for sure. So if you have a Sony system, then A7R Mark IV is the way to go. Fuji X-T30 is pretty good camera. Okay, do I recommend buying medium format instead of full frame? Yeah, if I'm shooting landscapes, definitely medium format is a better deal. But they come with their own price. Not only the money part, they are heavy, they are big. There are lenses and everything is ridiculously expensive, and they have their own limitations when it comes to focus in the dark and everything. So yeah, that is there. So perfect balance I found was shooting with a Z7 kind of camera, which has everything nicely balanced. How to take clouds during bright sunny day? I think you're asking about moving clouds. So you have to use the ND1000 filter, which is a 10-stop neutral density filter. That way you will be able to shoot for a longer exposure, which will have a cloud motion. Tripod for mobile phones. Disha Jain. Okay. I think Manfrotto makes nice mobile tripods. So take a look into their catalog. Is it good to follow two genres? Oh, yeah, you can absolutely follow two genres at the same time. You can follow 7 genres at the same time if you have time and if you can put up hard work. Sorry about the audio missing. Okay. How to confirm sharpness during taking landscapes? Which technique do you use? I usually zoom into my screen if I'm shooting with mirrorless. It shows me right away if it's nicely focused or not. What is the difference between travel photography and landscape? And yeah, I already mentioned that, Dipankar. I'm glad you enjoyed the webinar, Nilangshu. Okay, Anupama, like a landscape photographer, can we have different types of photographers like who click portraits, photo, etc.? Yeah, absolutely. I think the host will manage different photographers, or we can have a session with me. I can obviously take a portrait photography session or any post-production sessions or stuff like that, because I do all the genres. What stop filter we should buy? If you want super drama effect on, then buy a neutral density, 10 stop neutral density filters. How many types of photographers are there who can you choose as a career opportunity? So if you're finance oriented and everything, then wedding photography is the way to go. Or commercial photography. Those are the two genres will make a lot more, it will make more sense financially. Landscapes and wildlife and things like those are more if you're established and you can put some money upfront. If you invest upfront, then yeah. Where to sell? There are a lot of places you can sell your landscape photographs. Okay, perfect. Can I have the radio? Okay, recording session. Okay, so that covers all the answers, I guess. Okay. So I hope you enjoyed. Thank you so much, everybody, for attending this webinar. I hope it was helpful, and stay safe and keep shooting as everything.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
All right. Take care, guys.
Okay, sir. Bye-bye.
Bye.